Wolfpack Nation? Welcome back to Tuffy Talk. We're so glad you guys chose to tune into this channel here and see our preview for the ACC tournament here in 2023. And I mean, it's going to be a really, I think, exciting tournament. The tournament's always exciting, in my opinion, but especially when it's in Greensboro. So, State has earned the 6th seed, and everything's locked up here on a Sunday afternoon, right around 3 o'clock when we're recording this. And I don't know, Michael. I think for me, I think there's a few interesting thoughts here. The top 4 seeds are interesting, particularly with Duke getting that win last night against UNC.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on the lay of the land here on the tournament?
Yeah, it certainly looks a little different than we thought it might just maybe a week or two ago, because Pitt, with Miami beating Pitt yesterday, Miami's the 1 seed and Pitt drops to the 5 seed because of all the tiebreakers. Like, Pitt could have been the number 1 seed if they had beat Miami yesterday. So they miss out on the double bye. That's huge.
Yeah, I just feel like they blew it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I know Miami's good, but golly, Pitt was the first 1 seed most of the regular season, so.
Yeah, it was really that loss to who did they lose to? I think Notre Dame last week, I want to say.
Yeah, maybe
they
something
lost
like that.
At Notre Dame. That really hurt them. Because Notre Dame's a 14 seed. So if they had just taken care of business there, I think they still would have been the 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest. I think Duke really earned it. I thought Miami earned it. I think all those top 4 teams in particular, but I thought Duke really closed out the season well to get them that double bye. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think Miami's the best team in the ACC. I know we said Pitt's been up at the top the whole year, but I just think consistently and just talent-wise, I think Miami's they earned the number 1 seed, and I think they're well deserving of that.
Well, let me say that, but they have who have they lost to this season?
So I think they lost to Florida State last weekend, like on the buzzer, and that was at home. So technically that was a Q4 loss. But it's Florida State. In no world should any ACC game be a Q4.
They've only lost 1 game in the month of February, to put it in perspective.
Yeah.
So they're playing their best basketball right now, and so otherwise their last loss was to Pitt in January, end of January. And then they lost to Duke there in State. But, Miami can score. I think Norchad Amir is really good for them. Obviously, Isaiah Wong's, their leader. So, but getting that Nigel Pack, I know they had that big NIL deal with him. That's really paid off, I think. And I think when you look at teams like NC State, Clemson, Pitt, and Miami, it goes to show you the NIL was a huge factor for all of those teams there. I think probably the only 2 out of the top 6 that were Duke and Virginia. Yeah. So, but anyways, go ahead.
Nigel Pack he came on in the second half of the year because the first half of the year he did not. Well, he was all right. Let's just say he wasn't worth the NIL deal he gave him the first half of the season. No, but he came on strong second half and definitely has helped them earn that number 1 spot.
So let's look here. So we're talking about. Let's look at the first day. So we've got, or maybe actually let's do this. Well, I guess it's the only ones you could look at, really, except maybe that Syracuse Wake Forest. Are there any of the matchups that we already know that interest you the most?
Syracuse Wake Forest. I would say that one. Just they just played Saturday, yesterday, as we're recording this, and Syracuse won. But Wake. They're top of the league in offense. They just struggle on the defensive end, which is why they're the 9 seed. But they could score if they can get past Syracuse and revenge that loss. They could score with Miami. Yeah. I would probably still pick Miami to win, but that's definitely an interesting matchup there. And then you got Florida State, Georgia Tech, Boston College, Louisville, and Virginia Tech, Notre Dame.
I guess let me ask you this question, because I got my thoughts on it. But is there a team out of those, the first matchups we see, which are 4 right there, we mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. One of them plays on the Wednesday. But are any of those teams that, whoever's on their side of the bracket scare you early on, like a Tuesday team or that Wednesday 1 game that could really do some damage?
it's hard to discount Virginia Tech just because they did it last year and they have almost the same team.
That's right.
And that could be our matchup in the second round.
Man.
Yeah, I'd probably have to say them. Which they didn't have Hunter Couture the first. Well, not the first. He got hurt early in the season, but he missed a couple games for them. But they struggle on the road. I think I saw something they've only won one game outside of Castle Coliseum.
I did not know that. Okay.
So it's either one or two that they've won on the road in neutral site. So they do struggle, not there in Blacksburg, but we saw it last year. So who knows? They put it together.
I'm curious how big those losses are. They most recently lost to. They beat Louisville, but that's Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Duke, they lost 81-65. Georgia Tech, they lost on the road 77-70. Notre Dame, they won on the road there. At Miami, they lost, and then Clemson lost. Virginia, they lost. I mean that whole, it's like one or two wins on the road. So not really good. But I'd say, man, that's the team that makes me nervous. I think a team for me that also makes me nervous, if you're on their side of the bracket, which we're not. I think Florida State could be, say they beat Georgia Tech. I think they could knock off Pitt kind of thing. I don't think they're necessarily going to, but they have the talent and the firepower there to do so. And then, to me, I think I would pick Wake to beat Syracuse. And that Wake Miami game I think would be pretty interesting. I think Miami should handle them, but I think that'd be an interesting game.
Yeah, I do too. That game yesterday was in Syracuse, and it's always hard to win in the Dome, and they still. Yep. I think it was a close game, but I probably would pick Wake here in Greensboro.
Okay, so let's begin. So you've got Wake beating Syracuse. Sure. Okay, so let's go to the Tuesday games. So you've got Georgia Tech, Florida State. Who you got winning that matchup?
Yeah, Florida State, like you said, they've got talent. They've got talent. So
Miles Kelly is good for Georgia Tech, but I think Matthew Cleveland and those guys at Florida State are really good. They can be. Louisville, Boston College. That's an interesting one. What do you think about that matchup?
That's another one where I think Boston College is probably better than the 10 seed they got.
I'd agree.
I mean, they didn't have Quentin Post their whole non-conference.
Yeah, I don't think it's by much.
Schedule.
I think maybe like an 8 and 9 seed kind of thing. But
yeah. I think they definitely would have won a couple more games if he had been healthy the whole season.
Yeah.
But Boston College definitely.
And then I guess from our conference earlier, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, you've got the Hokies.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we're saying that Georgia Tech, Louisville, and Notre Dame kind of ending their season early. Which, if Notre Dame were to lose, that would be probably what's the guy's name? The coach,
Mike Bray.
Mike Bray's last game, because they're not a tournament team. Maybe I don't even know if they're an NIT team. So
probably not.
That might be his last game. So for those watching that might be kind of an interesting tidbit there. So then you've got Syracuse. We mentioned Wake advancing there. So then you'd have Florida State, Pitt, Boston College, UNC, and Virginia Tech, NC State. So let's start with Florida State, Pitt. What do you think about that matchup?
Yeah, we kind of mentioned it a little bit. Florida State's got enough talent; they can play with anybody. And then Pitt's coming off. I guess that's 2 losses in a row now, so they're struggling. I think, them playing on Wednesday when they pretty much the whole season thought they would get that double bye. That's got to be disappointing.
Yeah.
I'd probably still take Pitt, but I think that could be a close game.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm going to go with Pitt there as well. I think Pitt has, going with the transfer portal, I think they have so much maturity and depth there for seniority that I think they're going to play just fine. But and they get an extra day there. But let's go to the next game. Boston College versus UNC. If that's what we think is going to happen. It could be Louisville, but we're just going to say for our predictions, I guess it'll be Boston College, UNC. So UNC, I guess while we're on that subject, do you really think it's a conversation of them being in or out? We're really just pandering to Carolina at this point.
Yeah,
we being the Jay Billises of the world and Joe Lunardi's. What do you think about that?
I don't see any. I don't see how they get in
They've done nothing.
without
They've done nothing.
either winning the ACC tournament or getting to the finals and losing in a really close game against like Miami or Duke again. But yeah,
I mean, like they have no quad one wins except State.
Virginia. No, Virginia.
They beat Virginia.
But
That's
they're
right. I forgot about that.
but they're 30, so
take that
literally
back.
the last team. The last team. to
State
get a
would be a
quad one.
quad two win at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Team. So it would be Virginia and NC State are their best wins at home.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't done anything on the road.
No.
I don't know how you can just if they were to give Carolina the end there, I'd be like, you might as well just throw out the whole quad 1, 2, 3, 4 thing and just go ahead and admit that you guys kiss up to Carolina because this is a joke if they get in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I think they're gonna have to win it or, make the championship game and lose a very close game to either Miami or Duke.
Oh, I think they got to win the whole thing. I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have if they did that. They would have to beat, let's say, a Boston College team, which means they played Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So they beat Virginia twice, which would be respectable. And then
Yeah.
you're saying they could potentially even lose to a Miami and still get. I just don't see that going.
I don't
2
either,
for
but
3.
I'm not gonna put it past.
No, I don't think. I think they have
The
to win the whole
NCAA.
thing. But let's just go there. So,
Yeah.
Carolina, Boston College. Who do you think wins this matchup?
Yeah, I mean I do think UNC will win that one. I just think there's too much talent there, and UNC will be playing for their tournament hopes, so they're the much more desperate team at this point. I mean, I guess technically Boston College is too, but
We've been saying that, but they can't. They would play for their tournament lives last night too, and they lost.
Yeah.
I thought that Caleb Love shot was a stupid shot, and I knew it was going to be him or RJ. I mean, they're on their best pieces, but I didn't like that shot.
Yeah.
And I could see. I'm trying to look back and see what Boston College's stats are for their team. They got 2 players in double digits. Am I looking at this right? They got 3 players in double digit scoring. They've got Zachary. Let me see here. Zachary, Ashton Langford, and Post.
Yeah.
And I can't go back and remember how they actually play. I could see BC beating them, but I don't think they're going to. I think I kind of tend to probably think Carolina's going to, but I wouldn't put it past Boston College beating them. I'm not saying that because it's Carolina. I think Boston College could, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, I think Quentin Post he's a top 5 big man in the ACC.
Oh yeah,
up there with Burns and Baycott and
Filipowski.
Lively from
Filipowski.
Filipowski. Yeah, Filipowski is kind of weird though because he's not really like a post guy.
I think
you got to
go
tall, but he's more of a kind of a stretch 4.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think pure post players. I think of Baycott and Burns and Quentin Post, and I'd say Lively is more of their 5.
I think we're talking about top 5 centers. I think Jesse Edwards from Syracuse has got to be in that conversation.
Him
So
too.
I think you're looking at Burns, Baycott, Edwards, probably your top in post, top 3 or 4, and then whoever the 5th guy is. I kind of think Filipowski's kind of at least in that conversation, but I could be wrong. So we got UNC. You got for the sake of discussion, UNC beating Boston College. We think, and I'm going to actually, I know where this is we're talking about the tournament as a whole. I'm going to, wait. We're going to have a second episode. We're going to talk about NC State side of the bracket here, but we're going to kick it back over to day 3. I think at this point we're talking about the quarterfinals where you have. We recap and we think it's going to be probably Miami versus Wake Forest, Duke versus Pitt, Virginia versus UNC, and then Clemson versus the NC State, Virginia Tech. We think, and we'll kind of leave that particular side of it until the next episode. But Miami, Wake Forest, you got again Isaiah Wong, no Chatter Mir, Nigel Pack. You've got that, and then you've got Appleby, you've got Monsanto, who's out, actually.
Well, he's out now,
too. Yeah. So, and then I'm trying to think who the other guys on their team are. Anthony Carr, and Hildreth for Wake Forest. So, What do you think about the 1 seed versus the 9 seed there?
Yeah. Um, if Monsanto hadn't gotten hurt, he's out
Yeah,
for the year. I may pick Wake
man.
just as an upset pick, but I mean, without Monsanto,
No, I agree.
I mean he leads the league in threes made per game. He was hitting like close to threes per
Yeah,
game.
now,
And
isn't
it's not easy.
Morcell was I think 3-point percentage, and or he
Yeah,
was at one point, and then Monsanto was quantity of threes, number of threes.
yeah, yeah. So I don't think Wake has somebody that can replace that easy 12 points a game they were getting from Monsanto. So I would pick Miami.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you there. I don't discriminate on that or disagree with you on that. I'm just going to move along here to the next one. So we got Duke versus Pitt, and to me, that might be the most interesting game of the day if that happens. And it's
Yeah,
the 4 versus the
yeah,
5 seed, and I think they'll be relatively even matched. I think Duke is really starting to put it together. Over the last 2 weeks or so, um, Pitt hasn't been playing, terribly, but they're not playing great. I, I could, I kind of think, I want to say Duke's going to win. I feel like Pitt's got enough in it to maybe get an upset there. So I kind of want to go with Pitt, but what do you think, Michael? Do you think Duke's can do it?
yeah. So yeah, it's funny. Like Pitt. If Pitt had won yesterday, they could have been the 1 or 2 seed, and
Right.
then it's
And we
like
have totally
this game
perspective.
is
I think
yeah.
Pitt would
It
beat Duke personally.
so Duke beat Pitt 77-69 at home.
And this will basically be a
And
home
then
game for them. So they
yeah,
go
they
against all
didn't
the
play.
North Carolina schools.
They only played once. Um, but Duke, you're right. Duke is playing well. They played. Um, I don't know. That's a tough one. I
I
think I'll
think it's
have to
probably
lean
going to be
Duke.
the most interesting, exciting matchup that particular day.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I'd probably lean Duke, but absolutely
Okay.
wouldn't be shocked
Well, torn.
if Pitt
So
won
for the
that.
sake of the conversation, let's say Duke
Yeah,
is going to win the game because they're higher seed. But I think Pitt's got something in them. They can still get this win here.
hmm
Um, but we'll go with Duke there just for the sake of the conversation. And then we got UNC playing Virginia, which might be the most irritating game to watch. So that day, I can't stand
really.
watching Virginia play, and I don't know about them playing UNC. What do you think?
Yeah, that's another one that I think will be close. UNC won that one at home. Um, I'd probably again lean Virginia here, but absolutely wouldn't be shocked if UNC got a nice whistle in Greensboro
Oh
and
yeah,
and pulled out a close
RJ
one.
Davis head fakes and
Yeah, yeah,
all that fun stuff. Yeah, I'm going back here and looking here. UNC shot in that particular matchup. So 39% Virginia to UNC's 46. UNC was shooting 45% from three. Virginia shot 33. 33 is not great, but it's okay.
yeah,
46 and 45 is pretty good, really good, I would say. I'm sorry, I'm kind of looking off screen here, my stats here. Free throws, I mean, UNC took 11 more attempts than
yeah,
Virginia, and Virginia's known for their defense. So how did UNC get to the line 11 more, or at least 11 more shot attempts than
yeah,
Virginia? I mean, and then Virginia did have 7 more steals, but Carolina had 8 blocks. I think Carolina had 11 turnovers that game too. I don't think Carolina's going to shoot like that. I think they're going to dip a little bit there, and I think UVA is going to step it up. I think
yeah,
UVA will lose once and not lose again to them. So I think Virginia's going to get that win. I do think it'll be close, but I think Virginia's going to get the win there. And then I think, not to get into it too much, I do think the second best game of the day is probably that NC State Clemson matchup rematch. State not
yeah,
played. It could maybe we give Virginia Tech there, but
yeah,
either way, I think that's the second most interesting game of the day to me. But we'll go now to the semifinals. We had Miami playing Duke. Who do you got going there, Michael?
Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flightland's Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
Yeah. I probably, again, that's going to be a close one. Duke won by 2 at home in January. Miami won by 22 in Miami. So,
Neutral
both
site.
times they've been at home. Yeah. Neutral site is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But again, I think both of these teams are probably the two best, playing the two best right now. I don't know if they are the two best, but they are definitely playing the two best.
Clemson looks really good right now too, though. They're playing really good ball.
They do.
But
I probably lean Miami. They got the guards, and that's usually the better guard play wins in March. That's kind of a cliche, but it's true.
Yeah, I think I got Miami there too. Miami is, you talking about somewhere in the middle. Those matchups probably like a 6 to 10 point favorite, maybe 5 to 6 point favorite against that game. Yeah, North Chattermere, Jordan Miller's a guy I haven't even mentioned for Miami that I think shooting really well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Anthony Roach is a good player for Duke, and he's really gotten strong. But I think like more guards that can play. And if one guy's not playing so well for Miami, other guys have the ability to keep the scoring up. So I go there.
Yeah,
I go there.
Duke has, Roach and Proctor, but Proctor really hasn't. I mean, he's been good. He's been solid, but Roach has won them some games himself, and if he has an off game, I think Miami wins that one easily.
Yep, and then we've got Virginia playing, whoever on NC State's side of the bracket, and I think it depends on who Virginia is going to play, how that game will go.
Absolutely.
If it is, to be honest with you, I almost wonder if out of the teams Virginia could play on the opposite, that bottom end of that bracket, I actually think the team that could beat them is State.
Yeah.
And I think they may be Clemson, but because Clemson's been shooting the ball really well lately, and you have to, I think, in my opinion, you have to shoot the ball well. But I would like State over Virginia, but in this situation,
you get past Clemson.
You get past Clemson, and I don't know if that. Well, we'll talk about that later. But it's I think it's gonna be interesting there. Let's put it that way. I think we'll get into it in our next episode, but I think that's gonna be probably the most interesting side of the bracket of the later games of what it's more of a toss-up in my opinion. So I think regardless, let's say it is Miami versus Virginia in a title game.
Yeah.
Who do you think that would be? I mean, who do you think wins that game? I'm going Miami. I think Miami's going to win it.
Yeah, I just said at the beginning I have a hard time picking against Miami right now. I think they're the best team in the ACC. But, Virginia has been there a lot more, at least in March. Tony Bennett.
I saw a stat that Virginia's won 6 regular season titles out of the last 10 years. And obviously, Larry Nagan's won the AC title in recent memory, but so has Tony Bennett. So, this will be interesting. I think Miami's going to do well there. It's going to be really good offense versus really good defense.
Yep.
And totally different styles of play there. You got really teams that like to move and transition athleticism, and then you got teams that a team that wants to slow it down and really draw up a play there. And I just in this situation, I think Miami. I almost wonder if that could be like a blowout. I could see Miami just putting like 15 on them. And
Virginia. I also wouldn't be surprised if Virginia doesn't make it to the championship game because they've struggled at the end. But I do still think with their defense, they'll at least make it there.
Yep.
Miami won by 2 at home. That was in the only matchup they played this year. It was a 66-64, so that pace favors Virginia a little bit.
Right.
So yeah, to your point, I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of went the other way here.
I just think Virginia, Miami will have to command the pace. They'll have to command the pace and like want to punch Virginia in the mouth, if you will. Like they're going to want to do that. Any team who wants to play Virginia, in my opinion, has to do that. So.
Yeah, you can't let Virginia play the way they want to play because their defense will suffocate you, which is exactly what happened when we played them. So.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be fun. I think Miami is the best team. They probably favorite win. And if Miami wins, they would have beaten. We said a Wake Forest team, a Duke team, we think, and then for the sake of discussion, Virginia. What does that do for Miami in the national brackets? What do you think that does for them?
Yeah, if Miami, wins the ACC championship, let me see where they're currently slotted in the brackets at a 5 seed, a high 5 seed. If they can win the ACC tournament,
I think put it as a 3.
It depends on what other teams in the other conferences do, but I think they could. Yeah,
but you would have beaten a Duke team.
Yeah.
And a Virginia team.
Probably Virginia. I think they could get as high as a 3. Definitely not up to the 1 or 2 line, but I think they could get up to a 3.
Yeah, and I think that would kind of actually even, the narrative is that this year that the ACC is weak. I think that would actually continue to hurt the narrative for the ACC because I think people look at Virginia's the best team in the ACC, and if they lose to Miami, well then the best ACC is going to get is a 3 seed, and that's not really that good. I think it's going to hurt the narrative there, but I think I could see Miami getting up to a 3 seed if they can win all 3 of those games.
Sure.
So we talked about UNC. They're probably not a tournament team at that point. Duke. Yeah. Are there any teams who are like, beside? I don't think State's a bubble team. So I don't think they are.
I think we're right. I think we're right above the bubble.
I think
a lot of things would have to go wrong for us to drop into real bubble
and I just want to go ahead and put
territory.
that discussion out. I don't think that's the case for State. But I'm just looking at the teams who are kind of on the bubble-ish.
Yeah.
Is Syracuse on the bubble? Syracuse out?
No.
They're out?
No, they're out.
So the only team, in my opinion, who's really in the bubble discussion would be NC State and UNC?
NC State, UNC, Clemson, and Pitt.
Clemson's on the bubble?
Kind of barely hanging on with that. They won by 25 against Notre Dame yesterday. I think they're barely hanging on. I think if they made a run in the tournament, I think they would be considered. But I think they've got a couple bad losses, a couple Q4 losses, which are hurting them. Their strength, their non-conference strength, the schedule is terrible. Yeah. It's like in the 300s, which is what left State out in 2019. It's what left Wake out last year. Yeah.
Yeah, because State is ranked. There's a website that we've talked about before on the show here called bartorvik.com, BARTTORVIK, and they have really good breakdowns data-wise of like every team in the country in basketball. And they've got NC State as a 51st ranked team, and they've got Clemson as a 55. And I'm looking here. Go ahead.
Their metrics aren't good. Like in the net, Clemson's in the 60s, I think, and that's because they jumped up from the mid 70s when they beat us by 25. That helped them jump up into the 60s. But before that, I think they were like 76, which not a lot of teams get in with that high of a net.
So I'm looking here, and if you guys believe Joe Lunardi's brackets, which I generally don't, most time take it with a big grain of salt. The last 4 buys are two ACC teams, Pitt and NC State. Yeah. And your last 4 out, to what Michael's point was, is Clemson. Clemson that last 4 out. Yeah. So let's say go back to that bracket, Clemson plays, and regardless if they have to win that game. They have to win that game, I think, to get in or have any hope of getting in. I guess we'll save it for the next episode, but I think NC State or Virginia Tech could be dangerous for Clemson. And
absolutely.
Tyson is going to have a big game for them. Hall's going to have a big game for Clemson. I don't know. I think Clemson's going to have to win that game, or else they're not in their NIT team.
Yeah, I think Clemson is in the same boat as UNC. That they probably have to win the tournament. Maybe a really good showing where they lose a close game in the championship game.
Because
maybe
winning
gets them
NC
in,
State versus winning NC State, if you're Clemson, you hope NC State makes it. Then they're playing NC State and they beat NC State as a starting point, because beating Virginia Tech and Notre Dame
won't
going to help
anything for
anything,
you,
right? So I mean, So if you're Clemson, you're really hoping it's NC State and you can beat State. But we'll talk about that matchup.
Especially,
here.
yeah, we'll talk about it.
But I think Carolina is going to have to win out if they want any shot. Obviously, Clemson has to win 2 games. They'd have to beat Virginia. They'd have to hope. I think Clemson have to hope it's State and then Virginia and then Virginia, 2 wins.
And even then, I think they still might have to win the championship.
And I don't know. I mean, maybe they would. I guess it depends what other teams do around them, because the other two, nationally, the other 2 teams are the other 3 teams: Utah State, Oklahoma State, and Arizona State are on Joe Lunardi's thing as first 4 out.
It also depends on what other bubble teams do. So.
Michigan, Oregon, and Vanderbilt are other teams who are right around there, but you have teams ahead of them: Wisconsin, Penn State, Mississippi State, Nevada. That might lose. But anyways, I think it's going to be very interesting. I think the later games are the more interesting matchups, in my opinion. But I'll tell you that the most exciting game to me that I can see for me that I'm going to watch is that Duke-Pitt game. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Assuming Pitt even wins.
I know, assuming Pitt wins, right? I'm making an assumption there. Let's say, even then, Duke versus Florida State is really interesting to me. So
because the other thing with Pitt, you just mentioned them. State and Pitt are kind of right on the same seed line. But Pitt, now that they've dropped to that 5, if they take a bad loss, like to Florida State or Georgia Tech, like
they could have had a total collapse.
Yeah, that would be bad. If they had finished 1 or 2. Basically, they would be guaranteed to playing a good team if they had finished 1 as the 1 or 2 seed. But now that they're the 5, they could have a bad Q3, Q4 loss again. Yeah,
did Capel win Coach of the Year?
I don't think they voted on it yet. I think.
So what happens if they lose? They've lost to Miami. They had a chance to get 1 seed, and they go to 5 seed. And then if they lose somehow to Florida State or Georgia Tech, man, who's Coach of the Year? Is it Larinaga? Is it?
Or, maybe Clemson.
Clemson, Brad run out, but they're they're out of the tournament potentially. So is it Tony Bennett because he won to share the regular season?
I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, because everybody's kind of was assuming it was going to be Pitt because they were going to finish 1 or 2, but they're finished 5th now.
I kind of think. Man, I don't know. I think voters may give it to Tony Bennett.
I think if they win their first game and then lose to Duke, I think it'll be Capel because nobody's gonna fault
Pitt was picked to finish last or second to last.
Yeah.
And they have a chance to be a 1 seed, and they just I don't know. I think it's really interesting from a voting standpoint.
I think it won't be because some years there's a clear team that's overachieved, but this year, especially if Pitt takes that loss in that first game, I think it could be interesting.
So then, I guess, kind of what I'm thinking about the voting standpoint, I think Rookie of the Year is Filipowski for Duke.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's really much discussion, in my opinion, there. I think
Judiments is the leading scorer for freshmen, but I think it'll still be.
I mean... Yeah, he's but he doesn't mean that much to his team as much as Filipowski does. And then
I would agree.
And then Player of the Year,
that one will be interesting too.
I have no idea who that is going to be.
Burton for Pitt, again, assuming they don't have a collapse here. He'll be up there. Probably Isaiah Wong for Miami will be up there. Baycott will get votes.
I think Burns will get votes. But I don't think it'll be many. Yeah. I'm not saying he's Player of the Year. I'm saying I think he'll get some votes because
I think Joyner totally will get some votes.
Yeah.
And obviously Terquavion will get some votes, but
and another point is too. I think a guy that you're going to see get some votes potentially is I think it'll be like a Syracuse guy voting, but I think Jesse Edwards is going to get some votes because he's averaging a double-double.
Really?
But
Hunter Tyson for Clemson might get some votes too. He's been really good.
it's not to me a consensus run rate. Somebody's going to vote Kihei Clark for Virginia, and it's going to make no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do not know who is the best player in
Yeah,
the ACC.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
to me, I think when you look at it on stats, I think it's Baycott. When you look on dominance, I actually think it's Burns. I'm sure there's just a player who just totally dominates. The only team who's really shut him down was Virginia. And then just a best – I don't know, man. I have no idea who it's going to be.
I know.
If you were to bet, who do you think it would be? You said Wong. You said Wong's probably going to be him, you think?
I think so, just because if I had to bet, that's the safest bet, the best player on the best team.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I don't know.
I don't think it's a bad guess there. I'm kind of curious to see who is leading this for a second. If I can find it. 1 second, guys. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, Michael. You got any other thoughts on that?
I just know. I mean, it. Like I said, I think it'll be interesting to see how the votes pan out.
Yeah.
So there's no one clear guy. Filipowski for Duke might get some
Appleby
votes.
is still. He's still.
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention him.
Yeah, Appleby is still your points per game leader on the ACC and your assists per game leader in the ACC. He is second in steals in the ACC.
Forgot about him. He'll probably be up there.
But I mean, he's top 2 in 3 categories: points, assists, and steals. Edwards is first. Jesse Edwards, like I talked about earlier. He is top 2 in 3 categories, which is why I say I think he's going to get some votes. He's top 2, and this is a guy. He's the center for Syracuse. He's second in rebounds, like right behind Baycott. He is first in blocks, and he is second in field goal percentage, which is probably the more impressive one. Even though he's a center, I don't know. I mean, Burns is not going to win it, but I think if Baycott and UT had done better, they would have gotten it. But it's going to be very interesting. We're not going to pick a name here because obviously we have no clue. But it's going to be very interesting. I'm excited about this tournament. I know Leighton and I will be at the 9:30 game Wednesday night, and it's going to be a late one, but it's going to be really fun. And so you'll see us there. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this preview for the ACC tournament here, and it's going to be on Greensboro starting on Tuesday, and I think the first game is at 2:00 on the ACC network, Florida State versus Georgia Tech. So be sure to tune in, guys, and if you're in the area, be there for the games, particularly the late ones where State's playing. And we're going to get to episode 2 here in a second, where we talk about NC State's side of the bracket. We didn't really touch on that here, but for those who are NC State fans, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel and share it with other NC State fans so we can, build this community here at Tuffy Talk. Where, again, we're just NC State fans talking state stuff. So we'll talk to you guys later, and as always, go Pack.